Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our Brio HR podcast, Doing It with Brio. Today, I'm really delighted to have Jake Abdullah on the show. I've known him through LinkedIn for some time and seen a lot of his inspirational quotes and posts. So it's really fantastic to invite him onto the show and talk about a subject that actually I very rarely get a chance to talk about, and especially to talk about publicly, which is fitness and health in the context of careers. So, Jake, welcome to the show. It's fantastic to have you here. Please
Happy to be here.
give the audience a little bit of an introduction.
Well, where do I start? Well, I'm 56 years old. Been in media and entertainment for almost 3 decades, 30 years. But music, but fitness is a very strong passion of mine. Not for the last 30 years, but for the last 20 years, I guess. I think that I really got into fitness as you're aging and stuff like that, and it's really helped my career, helped my mental well-being and stuff. So yeah, so it's very passionate. So apart from doing what I do, I have a daily fitness routine that is almost like I always tell people, I'm not motivated, but I'm very disciplined. Some days I just hate to get up and do it, but I'll do it anyway. So yeah, so this is so that's me. I've got I'm a huge Liverpool fan, so that's why I asked you which part of UK are you from. So yeah,
So if,
alma mater sorry.
if you look over my right-hand shoulder, sorry, my other shoulder, you can see a cushion on the sofa. I don't know if you can see what football emblem
Oh,
that is.
okay. Yeah, yes, Hotspurs.
Yes,
Spurs.
yes, yes. I'm
You
not a
all have.
shoot, but I make sure it's always visible in the podcast just in case, just in case.
We're okay with Spurs here.
Different ends of England. But yeah, it's great to have you on the show. And I mean, one thing that you notice, when you are on LinkedIn a lot, you scroll through LinkedIn a lot. There are a lot of posts about mental health. Um,
Mhm.
and one thing I've come to realize about myself over the years, and not just realize myself, but other people have pointed out to me, is how closely my mental state is related to my actual physical health. Maybe not physical health, but my actual fitness. The ability to exercise every day, the ability to go to the gym every day, and have that positive body image actually has a massive impact on how I act, on how I feel, and how I act with other people. Um, I don't know if it's like a body chemistry thing where
It
the
is.
body
It is.
involved in,
It is.
but
It
also
is.
is it an ego thing as well? Like you're happier when you know that you look good. But have you experienced that yourself? That kind of
Yeah,
link between the yeah.
definitely. Because I think you actually nailed it already. There, it's two things. Is one is your physical well-being, how good you look affects, how you interact with the outside, your confidence, your esteem, and stuff like that. But more important is the hormones we're talking about. You just actually
Mm,
nailed it, which is dopamine and serotonin and stuff. This is all feel-good hormones. So so why do people have this runner's high? Why do I go to the gym for a pump? Why do so what happens is your body is in a very not homeostatic but very and heightened
mm,
state. So you're feeling high, a natural high, and it's actually very helpful. So most people are very confident. So the physical outlook is definitely apparent there. When people look good, they're confident, lack of low self-esteem and stuff like that. So I've seen it. People just change. I
mm.
also am a qualified personal trainer, so I've seen people who have been obese, and when they drop the weight and stuff, how confident they get and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but so it's all hormonal. So so I
It's
agree with you. Yeah.
amazing, yeah. It's amazing the difference it makes. But have you ever tackled that in teams that you're working with when you are leading large teams, as you have done in the past? Have you ever? It's a difficult subject to broach, right? When you know people are struggling, they are having difficulties, and you know that also if they just started acting more healthily and exercising more and eating more healthily, it would actually make a world of difference. But at the same time, there's always that barrier between a boss and a team member to
Mhm.
jump into that personal conversation versus a
I,
career or professional conversation.
I have so many experiences about this because the last company I was working was a large media company, Astro,
Mhm,
and when
mhm,
I rejoined as CEO, first thing I wanted to initiate is health, but I couldn't actually force it onto anybody. You see, so what happened was during lunchtime, they'll see me with a gym bag, leaving for to work out, and most of the times I'm preparing my own food. I'll have lunch in my room and stuff. Eventually, you know what I mean. That people start to mimic and parrot, and hey, what's that? What
Yeah.
did you bring? What, ask you questions like, what's intermittent fasting? How come you're not having breakfast? How does it work and stuff like. So eventually, we saw, as the Gen Y started getting into the working, as- what happened was they are more aware, or woke, So what happens? They want to get into CrossFit. They want to look good.
Yeah.
So that actually helped. So if you notice also in business, the drinking culture has sort of gone down. You
Mm.
know, so people are at gyms, people are at CrossFits. They're playing golf, they're playing, they're going bowling, they're cycling a lot, which has come up a lot. So
Mm.
there's been a huge shift from back in the day when I started working, where the drinking culture was so prevalent, and after 5 years in a pub somewhere, so that helped a lot. But yes, I think most important, bosses or leaders or CEOs or C levels or managers, they have to establish this. In some companies, like on a Friday they'll give every alternate week or what, they'll give the staff, let's go for bowling or let's go up a
Mm.
hike. So you have to do that, because what happens is, you lose half a day, man hours, yeah, if it's like a 200 people, you're talking about quite substantial. But however, the long term benefits are definitely very evident. Yeah.
Definitely, and it's not even about not being healthier and not taking sick leaves. It's the mental alertness that you get when you are in better shape. You can work better, you
Mhm.
can work longer, the quality of the work actually goes up. But I think
Yeah.
I most struggled with my personal fitness between the ages of 30 and 40. That's where it all went kind of off the rails for me. And I was trying to talk about this to some other friends, but it didn't really go anywhere. They hadn't really shared the same experience. But for me, when I was young, fitness was easy. It was just easy. I could eat whatever I wanted. I'd go to the gym and work out hard a few times a week, and I would just have a good physique, a six pack, and everything was fine. But then you reach a certain age, I think it's late 20s, early 30s, and suddenly everything becomes difficult. You're doing the same things, but it's the result is different. And I think it took me 10 years to adapt to that. I think it took me by surprise, and it took me a long time to adapt that I did have to change. And I guess I'd always had that opinion that it worked before, so it should still work and it should work again. And I resisted changing for a long time. But do you think a lot of people get stuck in that, or get surprised by that change in their bodies?
Yeah, I think you've just explained aging very well. Because what happens is it's actually hormonal. I tell a lot of people this. Even I talk to people who are depressed and stuff. I say it's a hormonal state which you have to get into. Post 30, I mean, times have changed, because the food we are, the intake of food is highly processed and stuff like, um, post 30 these days, when I speak to doctors, post 30 males tend to lose 1% of their testosterone level, which is the male
Mm.
growth hormone, male hormone,
Yes.
and it keeps declining. By the time they are 40, already most of them are in a very low testosterone state. And when you're in low test, you definitely get more depressed, your visceral fat increases, your belly fat, and then suddenly you're tired all the time. And it's very common. It's very common because of various factors. Like you were talking about. We get entrenched in our work, that half an hour a day, 1 hour a day, people don't spend taking care of themselves. Food is so easy. Fast food is so easy.
Yeah.
People go out and grab. So people don't want to cook. So all this has contributed to that. I've seen people in the 40s who have very low test levels, and always depressed and stuff like that. But again, like I said, if you do encounter this, talk to doctor, get your blood work
Mm.
done, see your test levels, and there's TRT, there's test replacement therapy and stuff like that. People should not. It's andropause actually.
Mm.
For
Yeah.
females is menopause and andropause. So it happens. But I do agree. So again, like I said, a lot of people don't understand that it needs to be a balance. If you're talking about exercise per se, and a lot of people tend to cycle a lot. A friend of mine was cycling profusely, doing 30, 40 kilometers a day. And he's saying I'm burning X amount of calories. And I said, I don't think so. You know why? Because your body gets more efficient. And he still got that belly and stuff. So I said, what happens is, your body starts to understand and you have to work harder to burn the calories. So it's always good to do the best of both, because the law of testosterone is use it or lose it. So to me, that's why I lift weights. I lift weights, and I do morning cardio. I lift weights because I'm trying to lift till about I'm 120. I'm trying to hack it, so so I guess it's a balance. I'd rather do it now than suffer later.
Yeah.
I've seen people in their 60s, they're already struggling. I went back to my class reunion and I was shocked. I'm 56. I was shocked. I was like, oh wow, what did you do? What did you eat? They don't understand that it's a lifestyle. It's not something. Yeah, I'm sure you'd agree. It's a lifestyle. So
definitely. And it's funny you mentioned that I described aging. I think when you're in your teens and you're in your 20s, of course you fully understand what aging is, and you understand that process, but you just don't think it's going to happen to you. You've got that strange delusion that it's going to happen. It happens to everyone else, but it's not going to happen to you. And it's not till it does happen that you think, oh my God, it's happened. It's here. I'm getting old. And it's, even though it's going to happen, you 100% know it's going to happen, it's still a shock when it does happen. But yeah, I always just wish I could go back in time to when I was about 28 or something like that. I think that's when things started to go downhill for me. If I could just go back in time to then and give myself a few pointers about what to change in my lifestyle, just very, very small things. And, I think it's a common question that people ask themselves or ask others: what advice would you go back in time and give yourself? And for me, it's never anything to do with career or business or things like that. When I think about the advice that I wish I'd been given or I could give myself, it's always about fitness. It's always about things which are related to my personal fitness. What about yourself? I mean, what advice would you give a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old when it's related to health and fitness?
I'll be very honest with you, because I was in nightlife. So, I was also, one of the top DJs in the country at that time. And I was clubbing. I owned a club and stuff. So I really actually abused my body. I won't lie about it. So one day I had an epiphany when my daughter was born, and I was 31 years old. And I said, look, you know what I mean? I can't do this. So, but if I had to go back and talk to 21-year-old Jake, I said, hey, do everything, but do it, within, context within, you know what I mean? Yeah, you have to be, because I'm sure, John, at that age, you know everything, and you take it to limits. There's no moderation. So I think moderation is the key, because if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be here also. So I can't actually say that, but but I think that, I have a son who's 21, my daughter's 26. And the same thing I tell them, I said, spend half an hour a day just taking care of yourself. Read, do exercise, small things like that. Actually, you might not see the dividends now, but over the long time, you'll see. You speak about mental health. I lost two friends who took their lives during the COVID period. Actually, took their lives. One was a guy who reported to me, an Australian guy, and he was 2 years younger than me. And the other was a very famous Filipino rock band singer, and perfectly normal. Next day they were gone. So again, like I said, the common denominator that you could see was exercise. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that it's going to save everything, but to keep yourself in that positive, one thing that when you have your health, everything is possible. So I guess, I always talk about this. I say, hey, keep your health. Everything else we can figure out.
Yeah. And it's tough because it can create a downward spiral. Like when you're going through a tough time, whether it's depression or something like this, you lose your positiveness, you lose your proactivity, and you simply don't want to exercise. But that in turn makes things even worse. And I've kind of experienced this recently myself. I think everyone has with the COVID lockdown. Before COVID, I was in getting really good habits with my fitness. And for me, as you said earlier, it's not about motivation, it's about discipline. And you build certain habits. And once you have those habits, it actually becomes quite easy. to go to the gym every day and do everything. But when something disrupts you and disrupts those habits, it's like starting at square one again. So when COVID struck and a lockdown struck, and I couldn't go to the gym anymore, and it broke my habits, it took me probably 4 or 5 months into the lockdown to really get things back going again and develop those habits again and create new types of workouts. But I think I needed a shock to make myself realize, to get myself out of that kind of downward spiral. And for me, I think, guys, I'm not sure if everyone does this. Maybe you can confirm it to me. When you look in the mirror, you kind of suck everything in, right? And you don't realize how bad things are getting. But then someone randomly takes a photo of you when you're not expecting it. And you see the photo and you think, oh my God. So that kind of oh my God moment. And I thought, I have to start doing some home workouts. But how do you help people to snap themselves out of that? If you can recognize someone is in a downward spiral where they just need that shock to put them back into the upward spiral.
The two parts to this, I think, in this era. One is people want a quick fix, and there's no such thing as a quick fix. Yeah. Number two, we are bogged. We all this Instagram influencers, and they shove it down your throat. And everybody thinks it's going to happen overnight. It's not. Yeah. I'm a qualified personal trainer, and I know exactly how long it takes to lose the amount of weight you put on. I trained somebody who's lost half his weight. He was 172 kilos. He's now 85 kilos, and it's just very smartly, counting your calories and ensuring everything. But again, like I said, people think that's going to happen overnight, and the market is brutal. Also, suddenly you see all this, supplements and stuff which is actually unnecessary, and people buy into it. So we are stuck in a place where, number one, it's so narcissistic. Think about it, So everybody subscribes to it. So, in fact, I told my friends, just shut off Instagram and just focus on yourself for a while. Because again, like I said, I only follow people I believe I can learn from. So, so I want to learn like David Goggins or even The Rock, and stuff like that. So I study them. So for people who want to get into a regime, I always say, start small. Keep your goals very realistic first, because everybody's, you know what? I'm going to lose 15 kilos in. I said, don't do that. I said, get up first. Get off the couch. Walk for 5 minutes. Tomorrow, walk for 6 minutes. Next day, walk for 10 minutes. If you're eating a plate of rice, eat half a plate of rice. So it's manageable. The problem is, again, like I said, is society. Society is into fat shaming, is into, but to me, it's health. It's not about the physical attributes, because that comes naturally. Yeah. So I tell people, whenever I start people off, I always tell them, very, very simple. Take one step at a time and track it, because what you don't track, you will not understand, because data is very important. So I take my weight every morning. I understand what is water weight. I understand, all this. So, in this context in Malaysia, they say, oh, don't eat carbs. I said, why not? I said, oh, carbs makes you fat. I said, no, eating too much makes you fat. You know what I mean? So stuff like, because like you're talking about testosterone, our body needs carbohydrates to actually make testosterone, so in your brain activity. So, keto diet. I said, look, hang on. Every diet works. It just needs to be sustainable. The problem is we're so impatient, Keto is something that I've tried it. I've tried everything, It's really tough, because we change our fuel source from glycogen to ketones, right? So we're actually rewiring ourselves. But the minute you stop, you get it back again. So it works for most people. It works for most people, but again, like I said, we are not meant to do this. We are meant to eat a balanced diet, So I always tell people, don't cut off the stuff. I have my cheat meals. I go out for a burger and stuff. I'll do stuff that, I'm not extreme in that sense. I'm not competing or anything, So, and it also helps your mental well-being. I mean, I have a brother who is a competitive bodybuilder. He won 4 times the world championship, WBF. Wow. He got 3rd this time. And the diet they go through is insane. It's insane. Yeah. It's not for regular people. You and I work. We can't sustain ourselves without having any carbohydrates. We'll probably chew somebody's head off. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's interesting, because diet diet has always been something that I've not even bothered thinking about. I always thought they were fads. I always thought it's just a sales pitch to get people to buy into certain ideas and pay for certain things that they don't need. And I thought that because I could, in my 20s, I could always maintain a six pack with eating junk food. And then I guess I hit 40 and I thought, out of desperation, I thought I have to try out some of these things. And I've actually found I've been doing, I guess, a kind of intermittent fasting with a kind of keto diet. And the differences that it has made has been profound, both in terms of, but also my receding hairline is not receding anymore. and things like skin, but also things like just my alertness and my mental energy. It's been quite profound. I just didn't expect it to have that kind of impact.
Intermittent fasting, to me, I will subscribe to everybody. I'll advocate to everybody because, the whole commercial market introduced that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which is absolute crap. We were never meant to have breakfast because we were all, hunters and, so in fact, diets like the warrior diet where you eat once a day, or the OMAD diet, what intermittent fasting does is actually, a couple of things. Once it's autophagy, it cannibalizes all your bad cells. Your insulin is in control. Your body doesn't spike insulin, so you're becoming more alert. So it's a great way of actually, then having a really great meal at the end. So so if you're doing IF, great, because I do IF a lot. I usually skip breakfast and then have lunch and then have another meal. So it actually keeps me very alert. I also am Muslim, so during the fasting month, I really fast and I work out. I get into my best shape in the Ramadan. So because I work out also, if you know who Terry Crews is, I'm sure you know Terry Crews from Police. Terry Crews. He's 53, I think so, and he's intermittent fasting and is ripped, absolutely ripped. I think the most important thing is we overeat, John.
Yeah.
We overeat, all of us, we overeat and it doesn't help us, so we take in more than we,
It's amazing because I've always, I guess, watching YouTube and reading bodybuilding magazines, it's drilled into you that you have to have 5, 6, 7 meals a day of small protein. But since I've been doing the intermittent fasting, that's when I've noticed the strength gains going up so much on things like deadlift, on squats. I'm not necessarily lifting more than I've ever lifted in the past, but the rate at which I'm improving now has gone up so much, which is completely the opposite of what I've always believed in the past, is that you have to eat protein and protein and protein. So it's very, very interesting area. I think do you think it's especially hard for Malaysians to do intermittent fasting because of the love for food? It's such a foodie culture, and it's not even the food. It's a social thing, right? It's everyone just loves talking about food. Everyone loves the experience of food. The hardest thing for me about intermittent fasting is not eating. It's the social context of everyone asking you, John, why aren't you eating? Come on, why aren't you coming out for breakfast? Why aren't you going for lunch? You're almost like a social outcast when you when you avoid these things. What do you think that's a really big deal for a lot of Malaysians?
I think you actually nailed it, because in Malaysia, food is actually such a it's inbuilt in our culture. When you talk to somebody, you say "Sudah makan," have you eaten? That's the first thing we ask people. Have you eaten? If you come to my house, the first thing I'll ask you is, have you eaten? Can I get you a meal? When we congregate or we catch out our friends, it's always, hey, let's grab. So it is tough, but I think that what's happened in the last few years is I see a lot of people intermittent fasting. They've actually understood this. So it is tough for me. So if I have meetings and stuff, I usually don't have breakfast meetings or breakfast, so it's lunch meetings and post that. I guess for Malaysians, it's a very alien thing. You're absolutely right. But people are getting it, a lot of people, and how very fast we fall into fads. So they think it's a fad, and suddenly, out of my staff back in the day, out of 200 staff, about 20, 30 of them which is about 12% of them, were intermittent fasting because I was doing it. They asked me why. I says, hey, I'm losing weight. It helps my growth hormone. It helps my testosterone level, helps my this, helps my that, skin's getting better and stuff like that. Yeah, and you're right. So, but it's tough in Malaysia because everybody's always pushing some kind of meal into your face. Yeah.
And it's funny because I moved to Malaysia around the time I turned 30. And for a long time, I blamed Malaysia for the fact that I was putting on weight. I discovered roti canai when I moved to Malaysia. Obviously, you can get that in the UK.
Heavenly.
I was eating so much, and I literally blamed Malaysia. Malaysia is the reason that I'm putting on weight because of all the food here. Of course, it's my own fault. It's completely my own fault. But for a long time, I didn't want to blame myself. I wanted to blame something else, and it was Malaysia. But you mentioned also social media earlier and the influencers. I think there's a huge amount of positivity about that in terms of the availability of information. Some people just don't know how to be healthy and how to be in shape, and there's some great influencers online on YouTube, on Instagram. I really like Athlenex, Jeff Cavalier from Athlenex.
Yeah, Jeff Cavalier.
And you mentioned David Goggins. I tried to do one of his 45-minute cardio blasts. I couldn't get through 20 minutes, but it's some really valuable information. But there's so many influencers who have this perfect body. They seem to have it effortlessly. Do you think that's actually damaging? In some ways it's motivational because you see them and it's a role model. It's someone that you can aspire to. But at the same time, you hear that maybe they're on steroids, on all these other kind of things, and they have this. It's not what real people can actually obtain unless they're taking drugs and performance enhancing drugs and things like this. Do you think it's more harmful than it's useful?
I think truth is a very important thing in this business, and there are very few people who will tell you the truth. Like there's one guy called Greg Doucette, I think, and he took a swipe at Jeff Cavalier the other day. Yeah, so Greg tells you the truth. He says, I'm on TRT, I've done PEDs before, I've done, cycle. Yeah. But you're absolutely right, because most of the time, 9 out of 10 of them who say they are clean and who say they are natty, I'm natural, are not. Because one look at their body and you can immediately see that there's no way you can build this physique, naturally. There's no way, So, some of us have been in the gym for years and years and years, and we train as hard. There's no way you can do this. So the second thing is, you see a trend of these influencers actually endorsing stuff, selling stuff. And I saw in Malaysia the other day, there was a lady selling pants that can actually make you slim. So I called her up on that and says, hey, this is a really bad information, spot reduction. Oh, you used to rub this cream on your tummy and you go down and so there's a lot of information. So you're absolutely right. I think we have to be a bit more intelligent too. But, it's herd mentality. If somebody does it, a celebrity endorses it, there's word of mouth marketing, people will follow. But the truth of the matter is, actually, it's, none of us are meant to get an Olympian body and stuff like that because, just to be healthy and lean and live a long life and to be mobile is great. So you don't need drugs for this,
Yeah.
Even in Malaysia, because I hang around most of these personal trainers and stuff like this, there's just so much of this going around, and they introduce it to really young people who just get into the fitness industry in the 20s and stuff like that, which can do so much damage to their natural system, hormone system. By the time they're 30, it's already halted, and So again, like I said, lots of good information. There's also lots of bad information, misinformation, and don't believe everything you see or hear or read. So do research. So I like to follow the scientific guys. I like the guys who actually can come up with proper some very good advocate a little bit of research into it, and then I'll try to understand it. If not, hey, use this, you get a 6-pack. Use that, you get an 8-pack.
Definitely. And do you think it is a factor in mental health? Obviously, I don't have any of the data or any of the figures, but there does seem to be a trend of more young people, even middle-aged and older people, suffering from mental health issues around depression. Do you think it is about this social media having an increasingly larger part in our life, and seeing so many of these so-called perfect examples of what a healthy man should look like, what a healthy woman should look like, not just in the health industry, but actually also in business. You see so many of these business gurus who seem to make no mistakes and make loads of money, and et cetera, and all these celebrities who are constantly online showing off their lifestyle. Do you think that's has a big impact on this so-called mental health issues that people are suffering these days?
Actually, you called it out very earlier just now when we were speaking, when you said that, how much of this is do we take in, or how much of this do we repel? But it's very hard for a young person who wants that immediate gain to not be affected by it. So I guess as we grow older, like right now, I'll shut off, I'll just go to the mute button and say, I'm muting you because you're talking a lot of nonsense. Follow you. So, so again, like that can happen. But people are watching this and they want to be a part of this. They think this is the social norm. They think that, you know what,
Yeah.
I need to be wearing a Rolex and a BMW, and this is a social norm. So, and people get depressed because they feel that, they've not achieved, society's level of, being successsul. So I think a lot of people are affected by this, especially the younger generation. So when I do lectures or stuff like that, I says, hey, hang on, do you really need it? Do you really need it? How is this going to change your socialism? So a lot of people don't understand that. Like, I give you a classic example. iPhone comes out, everybody wants an iPhone 13. So, but why? What's the reason? Is it, do you really need it? Or so necessity. So it's just, to me, it's peer pressure, and and you can see it more and more in teenagers. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think as you get older, whatever generation you're part of, as you get older, you always criticize the younger generations, and so I don't know if you can really criticize them, or if it's just the old criticizing the young. But definitely, when I was growing up in the 80s, the heroes that I had were people like Arnie, Sylvester Stallone, all these kind of fitness actors or action stars. Looking at where things are now, the social media influencers are taking on that role that these kind of action stars used to have. For people that are really youngsters who are really into this kind of thing, there aren't so many of these big, genuinely impressive action stars anymore. But on Instagram, on YouTube, that's where you see all these kind of really, really fine specimens who people potentially look at role models. Do you think that's a bad thing or a good thing? Do you think we still have the role models that you and I had growing up, or do you think there's just social media is so wide these days? There's so many, it doesn't have the impact that it used to have.
Yeah, I think there's just too many platforms. Back in the day, you and I could pick up a Flex magazine or a Muscle and Fitness or Muscle and Development, and get our idol worship going on there. But Arnold is still a huge factor in that. He writes a very good email every 2 weeks or what, which I subscribe to. But you're right. I mean, these days, if you can get motivated by watching some K-pop group, I mean, again, like I said, so it was just really weird because, again, like I said, they're projecting a different lifestyle, and everybody wants that. How does it work? Like Squid Games was, oh wow, huge, hit 90 countries, #1. So we have herd mentality. So I guess it comes in fast and goes away. So do you actually want to subscribe to it? In terms of and The Rock said it really well. He says everything that I've achieved is because I've spent time in the gym. I've worked harder than anybody in the gym. Terry Crews, Michael Jai White, the action star, and all these people. So again, like I said, it's the fitness aspect that actually drives that. You talk about, the present generation. You're right. We are void of that. Who do we have?
No, it is, and I haven't heard the name Michael J. White for a while. I might have to go back through my
Big
DVD
fan.
collection, pick up one of his old movies. But I mean that really leads me on to my last question or the last theme. Who are your kind of fitness heroes? Not necessarily going back to when you were young, but nowadays when you do need a bit of a motivational pump before a workout, or when you do need a little bit more info, or that extra pump of motivation. Who do you look to? What do you check out to kind of get information?
I'm very into David Goggins, not because of he doesn't have this amazing body or what, but it's just his mental strength is amazing. I find that, every time that I feel down, he's like, there's no nonsense, you drill sergeant, pick yourself up, forget about it. Look at the guy's got 4.7 million people following him. He doesn't follow
Yeah.
one person every day. And he's working out, and he's not talking about his working out. So Arnold is one of them. Other than that, The Rock I used to follow a lot, but right now he's just gone very commercial, selling his tequila and selling his this and selling his that. It's no fault of his. Probably he's joined that part of the bandwagon, but there are very few people that I sort of So I listen to a lot of podcasts, Jeff Cavalier and Athlete X and stuff like that. But it's interesting that I'm looking for more scientific information now. So rather than because my goals have changed. It's not to you want to look amazing, but also to be mobile and to be functional and to be able to because it's no point looking having this fantastic body, but if you're gonna succumb to some kind of illness or stuff like that. So I think like I'm looking at stuff like stretching, which I really need to do more of, mobility. There's this great guy on Instagram. I don't know his name, but his handle is Knees Over Toes Guy, which is he talks about knee problems and how you can fix it. And it's great. So I look for those kind of stuff. But other than that, we are void of anybody great. Think about it. Ronnie Coleman has suffered massive spine problems because of that. Dorian Yates, one of my all-time favorites, is just he's recluse and he's doing his own thing. And Flex Wheeler, I heard today, is very badly struck with COVID, and is fighting for his life. So and bodybuilding itself has changed so much, which I really don't like. So it's just
definitely.
If you watch the Olympics, the guys are like 320-pound monsters on stage, where Arnold's time was just so beautiful. So so I'm looking for more mental now. I'm looking for. I'll do the work, Just I need to switch. So Goggins does it for me, if I had to say it. Yeah,
it's funny. Goggins, he's so intense, and often when he's talking, especially when he's talking directly to the camera, the intensity jumps out at you, and you more than anyone else, you feel as if he's talking directly to you, as in not to an audience, but directly to you. And that's actually quite scary, because it feels like he's really looking at you and seeing all of your flaws and all of your failures, and I find him quite intense and almost scary to watch at times. But that's a good thing in many ways. Yes.
Yeah, I like his humility, and he always calls it like it is. It says, I was not overweight, I was fat. I was not very smart, I was stupid. He calls himself out, because when you shame yourself, that anybody else talking to you like that doesn't hurt you anymore. So I mean, his book was amazing. So so really like Goggins. I wish there was more people. I subscribe it to a lot of people. Actually, to me, it's even such a great book. It can be a business book on leadership and self-development. So yeah,
fantastic. So Jake, I think we're coming to the end. Thank you so much for coming on Do It with Brio. I hope we can catch up on this subject more. To everyone at home watching, I hope this has been a useful subject for you. It's not a usual LinkedIn subject, but I think it's a subject that everyone needs to know about. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Jake, for joining me today. It's been a fantastic session, and I hope we can catch up again soon.
Definitely, John. Thank you so much. Yeah, happy to be here, and I love the T-shirt. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.